Welcome, you guys. I'm so thrilled to be here to dive into behind the scenes of sci-fi, horror, and drama film and TV. So, we got a lot of questions. We're going to get started. Jazzy, where's Jazzy? Hello, Jazzy.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well, thank you. I want to ask you about The Traitors. This show has taken reality TV by storm. For those of you who don't know, it is a murder mystery hosted by the amazing Alan Cumming, which is obviously makes it the perfect show. Can you, Jazzy, walk us through the casting process for The Traitors? How did you approach casting decisions, especially considering the psychological nature of the show and the reintroduction of familiar reality TV talent?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with The Traitors, the show actually existed overseas first, but this was the first time we brought it to the US. So we were really excited because we had the opportunity to really chomp down and kind of figure out what the groundwork would be for this cast, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So since it has a psychological element to it, we really made sure that we had different types of people, different walks of life, people that you normally probably would walk on by and be like, oh, they're not going to be manipulative, or are they going to be someone that's going to hold a secret? I don't know. But think about it. Hairstylist. You tell all your secrets to a hairstylist. They're going to be great for something like this. Maybe someone that's a political analyst. They can talk about absolutely everything, but can they actually bluff? We don't know. So that's how we made sure that we first combined the civilian cast. And then afterwards, we then found out that we were going to have celebrities intermixed. So when you have some celebrities intermixed and all of these huge reality stars, you want to make sure that these people can level up or be gullible when it comes to the Rachel Rileys of the world. You want to make sure that they'll just fall in and eat everything that she's saying and kind of go from there. So we really made sure that we had a perfect blend of the two, and we had a blast doing it.
You're like the game master in the Hunger Games, kind of, right? I'm kind of scared for you, but I want to know so many more things. Interesting. I'm taking note of this. I'm going to move on to Austin. I have a quote for you. Director George Lucas once said, "Sound is 50% of the movie-going experience." Austin, I'd love to hear more about your sound work on projects like Griselda and Euphoria, two shows filled with either action sequences or dramatic scenes with high stakes for the characters. So how does your role contribute to the final sound experience?
So my role as re-recording mixer, I'm actually sort of the last step in the audio process. I'm gathering all the dialogue, the music, and the sound effects, and I'm balancing them all together and sculpting them to create the final soundtrack for the film. And it's really fun because I get to work really closely with the directors to create the sort of sonic landscape that these shows have. And each show, it's very unique. So with Euphoria, Sam Levinson loves to use his camera work. He's always moving the camera. He likes using reflections with mirrors. So he had a visual vocabulary. So we wanted to create a sonic vocabulary that matched that. So we worked closely with our team to basically really push and pull the sounds. We want to move audio as the camera moves and just kind of make it interesting as the visuals are interesting. And with Griselda, it's a period piece for late 70s, early 80s. So we wanted to highlight that era and make sure all the sounds match that era between cars. But also we wanted to show the brutality of what the show is and who Griselda was as a character. So it's really fun to work with the director and kind of create these visions, and then I work closely with each department to just make sure we're all kind of working in the same direction and creating this sort of cohesion that the soundtrack has. So you have your dialogue has your dialogue editors, and then your composers for music, and then your sound effects, sound designers, and Foley artists, and they all sort of work independently of each other in a way, and then it all gets to me, and then I have to now balance them all together and make sure they all can work and sound nice and cohesive with each other.
It's a very important job. I love the term audio vocabulary.
Yes.
I'm gonna steal that. I like that. Charles, how are you doing, Charles?
I'm doing great.
I love
to be
it.
here.
Good. Everyone is very happy that you're here, including myself.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how do you approach editing scenes with high stakes action sequences or intense emotional moments in both 911 and 911 Lone Star to kind of maintain the tension and audience engagement?
Yeah, that's the crux of it all. I have to see all of the material. I have to see all of the picture. I have to hear all of the sounds. So I take in basically everything. I read the script 3, 4, 5 times. And each scene I ever cut, I probably cut each scene probably a good 7, 8, 9 times. Just refining. Pacing and, good editing. It's really good when you can't tell. My job is to make it so that you're just in the experience, that you're not seeing editing, you're just in the experience. And so shows like 911 and 911 Lone Star, which are, my scripted periodicals that I cut, they just do a little bit of everything. There's drama, there's action, there's comedy, and all that pacing and those little turns and those pivots, that's the crux of my work, and it's the crux of what I enjoy doing the most. So I spent a lot of hours just going over the footage again and again and again until I finally make it to folks like Austin, and we finally get to collaborate and just polish it up and finish it off and make certain that it all resonates, and you laugh when you're supposed to laugh, or cry when we think you're gonna cry, it gives you the lump in your throat, or make you question it at the end. So that's the joy. It's the joy I have of editing.
I like how in my question I just casually asked you, how do you do everything that you do? But I worded it nicely. Did you see that?
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Carlye, how are you, Carlye?
Hello, I'm good.
I love your jacket.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Okay, so your short film, The Devil's Daughter, incorporates a mix of practical effects, VFX, and video game elements. How do you approach balancing these elements to create a cohesive and visually engaging experience?
It was really hard because, so this is just a short film, a proof of concept. So I think we didn't have the money to properly do it. So we improvised a lot. I took a lot from the video game Diablo, and I kind of, initially I started Devil's Daughters with like a mood board, just everything I wanted it to look like, and then I had to sort of match everything from there, which was helpful that I not only am in it, but I also wrote it, I directed it, I edited it, all of the jobs. So there are more jobs than that, to be clear. But
You're my kind of people. I like this.
But because I had all of those pictures in my head already for the edit, I could sort of match everything from the acting style to the costumes to make everything seem that like sort of heightened video game aesthetic, but then grounded in sort of like real kooky reality with the actors. So it was just a lot of collaboration, and because I was in it as well, I would have to stop, go check the monitor. We had a lot of things where, I knew there was gonna be video game elements in it, so we had to shoot it in a way that was like offset, so there was room for that, which looked, insane to like the normal person, and half the people there were like, what are you doing? Like, do you know that this is off? And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be fine, I think. I don't know. But we didn't have a proper VFX supervisor on set, which I cannot wait to have proper funding to make the next thing, because that would be so helpful. Okay, So it was, a lot of improvising in the edit, a lot of seeing what could work, what might work, and trying things out, and then truly checking all of the footage to see what we could construct that might make any sense.
Yeah, and honoring your own vision internally.
Yeah.
Just following your own lead.
Yeah, right? Because it's like, not everyone's gonna get it, but I'm like, I promise you, in the end, it's gonna be sick. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I learned a lot too. And I think just like the special effects versus like all of the practical versus what you do after, it's so interesting to play with those elements, see what you can get away with practically first, and then sort of after be like, okay, that didn't work. We're gonna have to try something else.
Wouldn't it be great if you could just like plug people into your brain and be like, do you see it? Cool.
Yeah.
Good? All right, let's go.
Absolutely. But you know what? Then you find the people that do see it the way that you see it.
Yeah.
And those are your collaborators forever. You know, like I've been making shorts for for years now, and I found my people that are like, oh, you get like the weird that's going on in my brain. Our brands of weird make sense together.
Yeah.
So let's just create forever as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, you know, you find your people, right? Yeah.
All right, you guys, so if, in case it hasn't been made aware, you're maybe entering a tiny spoiler zone for some of the shows you may watch. This isn't really, but it may be, I don't know. I don't want to surprise anybody. So, Marshall, how are you, Marshall?
I'm doing well.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I want to talk to you and ask you some questions about the Perry Party acid shower sequence in episode 2 of The Fall of the House of Usher. Yes.
Yes. My hope, and I've said this before, is hopefully there's no government agencies, whether national or international, that monitors my Google searches.
Great.
Because burning body with acid, I think that might set off a red flag somewhere, at least. So, and also I've learned, I have to turn off safe search. So if I go to show my screen to an artist, I have to be very careful.
You're safe here. You're safe. You're safe here. You're good. At least I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
There might be some spies lying around here.
So you go out and look at a lot of reference. I mean, ultimately, what we ended up with is finding reference where somebody, for some reason online, was dropping acid on, dead, I should say, chicken wings or chicken drumsticks. So you'd see how the flesh would bubble and stuff like that. You research that, and with this show, everything had to be grounded in realism. They wanted everything to look as real as possible. So for everything, we had to search through on that. We found a few different techniques and approaches to do it. It doesn't end well for the partygoers, I'll say that much. I would encourage you to watch it. Some of it did have practical makeup on it, but of course you can't really burn people down to the level that we had to do it.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's the new laws, something like that, I don't know.
2024,
Back in the old days, But yeah, it was pretty graphic. We actually had one artist who requested to not be on the sequence. It was just a little too kind of graphic for them, and I don't know, I think after a couple of nightmares that she had or something, it was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So we put her on another slightly less violent sequence.
You guys are just doing your jobs too well.
Yeah. Well, that's
Wow.
usually what it is. If I usually say that with something, if I'm adding camera shake or motion blur or something, when I make myself throw up, I know I've hit the right place. So, but yeah, it was a very interesting, very kind of graphic, but yet not. I mean, sometimes you don't always want to show everything. It's like, the first Alien movie. I mean, that says a lot right there.
Yeah.
You didn't know what it was, and that scared you more because your mind fills in the blanks.
Sure. I'm so scared of some of these people on this panel. In the best way. Philip, how are you, Philip?
I'm very well.
Oh, good. I'm going to follow some questions with you after we talked about all the acid and killing of things. Given your experience scoring both Supernatural and its spin-off, The Winchesters, how do you approach composing music to capture the essence of this unique supernatural universe while still maintaining a distinct identity for each series?
Right. So when I had the great pleasure of assisting the great Christopher Lennertz for Supernatural's 15-year run, which is kind of insane when you think about it. So I learned a ton while I was working with him, and I started eventually writing, co-composing, and then the opportunity came along to score Winchesters, which was the spin-off, and we had a lot of conversations with the showrunner, Robbie Thompson, and the whole crew about how do we honor the DNA of the mothership being supernatural, while still making a new show like the Winchesters. And part of that was answered by the fact that Winchesters took place in 1972, a good, 30 years before Supernatural. So in that sense, we felt like, okay, here's an opportunity where we could probably go with a more acoustic feel in terms of instrumentation choice. You know, Supernatural could often be use a lot of synths and more distorted electric guitars and that kind of thing. And with this, we thought, well, you know, this is we're just coming off the end of the '60s. It's going to be, we could get away with more acoustic guitars, more organic sounding elements. So that was a way we could diverge and have a little bit of our own stamp on the show. But regarding the, you know, using the DNA from Supernatural, where that came in was actually with all the, anything that involved horror or supernatural, anything kind of really scary, we reached into the same sonic toolbox that we had back then and used it for Winchesters. And that just makes it very satisfying for the viewer to be like, oh, when you see the demon eyes go black, the same kind of like clunk, or, you know, any number of kind of sonic signatures that we had in Supernatural we would use on Winchesters, and that kind of made it feel, you know, it gave, I think, kind of, this might sound a little weird, but like, oh, the sort of warm and fuzzies. It's the Supernatural that I know. You know?
Oh, the demon eyes, they made the sound.
A stake being driven to your heart. Oh, how sweet. No. But so that's how we balance that, is using the, you know, the horror signature that we had for Supernatural, using that on Winchesters. That's what ended up tying the two shows together, which hopefully was, you know, in a satisfying way.
That makes a lot of sense, and also very smart. Charles.
Yes.
911 and 911 Lone Star often incorporate real-life emergencies and disasters into their plots.
Yes.
How do you navigate editing these sequences to maintain authenticity while also keeping the audience's experiences in mind?
Well, the single word answer to that is collaboration. I cannot take all the credit. You know, we work with companies like FuseFX. I work with brilliant composers and incredible remix artists, soundstage mixers like Austin. I maintain, you know, a knowledge of the arc of all of the characters. So my job as an editor is really all about subtext. I know we're talking a lot today about what you see and hear, which is your first level of senses. I, as an editor, am really concentrating on what you're feeling kind of below that. The subtext, she might be screaming, ah, but I realize some other aspect of her storyline, and so I might make a joke about it in the midst of all that screaming. So, you know, and then the crux of the show basically is 911 and both 911 Lone Star are about first responders, and like the log line for the show is, it's first responders who are experts at saving everyone's lives and taking care of people, but they can't manage their own. So I keep that, you know, at the forefront. We want to make our sequences feel as real to life as possible. We do a lot of VFX in camera. The actors are pretty gutsy. And the producers and stunt coordinators are just really, really super talented. We work very hard with a lot of meetings. We have a lot of front-end conversations about how we're going to approach an emergency. When an emergency is happening, you might hear them talking about, oh, there's this and there's that, and what's wrong with her eyelid? All that dialogue is really important so that you can actually track what's really happening, because you're not a doctor, or you know, you're not a surgeon. And so weaving all of those elements together, that's the craft of editing, and setting it all up so that when the composers and the remix artists come in, there's a great canvas there for us to collaborate and just all come in and bring our best, so that when you're watching it, you're just totally stuck in what's happening. You feel the little joke and you're like, oh, that's funny, and then you're right back in the midst of what's going on, and hopefully you learn something from these emergencies. Her eyelid is stuck together and it's called, you know, tachycardia or whatever, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. So, you know, 911 and 911, so they can be really, really fun shows. 911 is more like adventure, action, it's bigger on the emergencies, whereas Lone Star is more character-oriented, more dramatic, more story-oriented. So, but they're two connected worlds, and sometimes they're real fun, is when we do what we call a crossover event, and that's when we'll have like some big giant emergency, like we had a solar flare once that like screwed up the whole planet, and it created such big fires that like it was in Arizona or something, so it was equidistance between Dallas and LA, or Austin and LA, so both shows, both fire departments were in on one big thing.
Dang, the Avengers.
You know, those are, yeah. There you go. You know, and yeah, you're right. They are kind of like superheroes to us. We want to paint them that way, and they have all their idiosyncrasies, and it's a big cast, and it's a whole lot of fun. So if you get a chance, you know, tune into 911 and 911 Lone Star. They're not just procedurals. They're super fun worlds to dive in. It looks like you guys know a little bit about swimming through worlds, yeah?
Are you also wearing a really cool 911 jacket? Did I see that earlier?
I am. You know, this is last...
Can we have a moment for the jacket, please?
This is real.
Come on.
I don't just play one on TV. I really am the editor.
I should have brought my Traitors cloak. I'm sorry.
Wow, missed opportunity. We'll circle back. Marshall, throughout the fall of the House of Usher, there is a factory building that plays a significant role. Can you discuss the process of designing and integrating this key visual element into the show's environment and how it contributed to the overall storytelling?
Yes, I can, Your Honor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
As you can tell, there's a trend with this. That when you think the fall of the House of Usher, basically, I'm not giving anything away really, but every Usher child dies pretty much every episode, and this is all how you go about it. And this lucky person here, the way he passed away was he had a building collapse on him.
Great.
And as they say, you know, most people see it from the outside. Very few get to see it from the inside. So it was very difficult for us to find reference on that. I tried to offer some of the artists to go in and shoot some reference video, but had no takers on that.
What?
Yeah, I know. So yeah, what you kind of have to do is we got the offline, the edit, the preliminary stuff on this, and it had a lot of cards that were black and said, the ceiling collapses. It continues to collapse. It collapses more. So that's what we had to work with. So we stepped in there and did something called post-visualization. So we had to sit there and figure out, okay, we got a building, this is what it looks like. We got to tell a story, we got to collapse it. But we can't collapse it too fast because we still have to have stuff collapsing by the time you get to the end of the sequence. And there's no way this building has this much stuff that we're using to collapse it. But hopefully nobody ever catches that as we go through it. Yeah, so that's there again working with Mike Flanagan and the other Michael director and Brett Culp, who is the studio side visual effects supervisor. We kind of walked through, okay, hit here, hit here, hit here, and it was like a wrecking ball and that stuff goes through it. Which is fine and dandy once you kind of got it all worked together, but what happened is there were no cutaways to live action, except a few. Primarily it was our sequence, cutaway, cut from shot to shot to shot. So if a column was falling in this one, in the next shot it had to continue to fall and it had to bounce through. So there was this whole, it's like dominoes, basically. We had to figure that out. And if we changed something, which we knew was going to happen, like we want that to fall sooner, then that would have to trickle down through every following shots. So we, the guys rigged up a system to where it was kind of all parented and all kind of knew what was happening in the simulation to get it down to that area. And that was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to deal with in my career. Aside from others, sinking a Titanic, that's easy. But collapsing a building is pretty difficult. So, it's just the complexity and the thought process you have to put into it. Had a lot of sleepless nights and sleepless days, it seemed. It took a lot of work, and hopefully at the end of it, you just kind of go through and don't really think about whether it's CG or whether it's real.
Sure. Next time you need reference footage, I'll put a GoPro on my head, okay? And we'll just run through. It'll be great.
Okay.
Okay, so Philip, you talked about it a little bit earlier, but can you elaborate on the choice to actually compose original circus-themed music for the Tears of a Clown episode of the Winchesters, and how does that music evolve throughout the episode?
Sure. So this episode involves this clown character called Limbo the Clown, who exists in this, as his character name implies, in a sort of parallel state, not our real world and not quite whatever we would call heaven or hell, just this sort of other state. And he appears at circuses and fairgrounds and draws people in who have experienced some kind of major trauma in their life, or some kind of tragedy, and promises them they will never feel anything bad, forever and ever, but they can't ever leave. And so he draws these people in, and they kind of stay in his world. And we were, it had been, there's something called, if you guys are not familiar, there's something called temp music, which is temporary music. Charles knows all about this.
A lot of
It's
temping.
when features or TV shows are being put together, before it gets to the composer, they'll put up other existing musical tracks from any number of sources. Could be from other TV shows, films, classical music, you name it. Just to kind of give a sense of like, what's this going to sound like when the composer actually composes it.
They're just little hints for them, is really all they
Yeah,
are.
it's
a
just sort of
vibe
a
check.
very rough guide. Just a rough, like, here's a palette of what it could sound like. Some of it's really spot on, some of it's not. But then the composer will come in and sort of wipe the slate clean.
Is that what you're
and-
doing with my temp music? You're throwing it all away?
Sorry.
You didn't use the Taylor Swift song that we put in there? Wow.
I'm learning all types of stuff here.
This is a. I've opened a can of worms. This is other conversation to have. But anyway, so in the temp music, there was this very nice sort of innocent sounding, carousel-like music, with calliopes and stuff, very sweet. And then we had just sort of typical jump scares and horror-sounding score for when you actually go into Limbo's world and see how horrific it is. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we actually just tied the two together and make it of a piece? So I ended up writing this kind of waltz that sounds, at first glance, when you first hear it, it sounds like you would hear it at any kind of carousel, berserkers, that kind of thing. And it sounds, this is kind of sweet. But then as you see this character, Limbo, appear, and then as you get more and more, as the characters are drawn more into his world, it starts becoming more dissonant. But it's still the waltz. It's still in this kind of 3 feel, but there's occasionally like a really jagged brass cluster going, just sort of, but it's in time, it's following the pattern, it's following the overall structure of the waltz. So you're always like, oh yeah, it's that really sweet piece that we heard earlier on, but it's become really dark by the end. And we just thought doing that by making it of a piece, it just ties the show together in a more satisfying way.
Spooky. Austin, I want to talk to you about how you collaborate with other sound professionals, such as sound effects editors and composers, to ensure a cohesive and immersive auditory experience in both Griselda and Euphoria.
Yeah, I mean, I love collaborating, and outside of audio professionals, I love collaborating with my fellow editors, which are key. I'm glad you brought up the subtext, because that gives me a lot of information to how to help direct my team, because, for example, I want to give an example of Griselda. We had an opening scene to an episode where it just took place in a car wash. It was a brief scene in a car wash, which, a car wash. But we needed it to be bigger than life. We needed it to feel scary. And the direction we got when we sat with the editor was, we have Griselda and her youngest child. And it's, a lot's going on in their life, so we want this to be scary for the boy, and then she kind of comforts him at the end. So I'm like, okay, let me go and work with my, effects editors, and let's, make this, really big. Let's use sounds that you would never actually hear in a car wash. Let's use really big bangs and jail door slam, just crazy sounds that are, be scary. And so we mocked that up, and, it worked. And then the editor was like, you know what? This scene actually, I think it's more about Griselda, not the son. And he cut it in a way where it's like, oh, okay. And it's an evolving scene, so it actually starts in horror, but then it evolves into fear. And at the time, we actually used sound design for a score there. We actually didn't have a piece of music written there. But because the scene had such a complex kind of arc that was beautiful, we worked with the composer, who was Rafael Rivera, who's an incredible composer. And we sat with him. We were like, look, we want this scene. It's going to start with fear, or with horror, and it's going to evolve into fear. And here's sort of the effects palette that we have. And it really allowed him to get an idea. And that scene was all about subtext. It was literally a car going through a car wash, but it was so much more than that. And it was fun to work with the sound team and all my effects editors and be like, look, we're cutting to, a headlight with water dripping from it, but I wanted to sound like Niagara Falls. Like, everything needs to be big and loud and scary.
Yeah.
And it was just, and then the music playing through drove the emotion of the scene and the facial expressions. And so the editing, no one spoke a word in the scene, but he was very particular, or she, I'm sorry, Kelly was the editor, was very particular on when she would cut to a reaction shot. And it's just amazing to see a scene without any dialogue have such a complex story arc in 60 seconds. And it's fun. It's amazing what sound and music and editing can do.
It's the collaboration. I mean, that's what makes this medium so powerful. I always equate it to like playing in a band, because all the musicians, or in an orchestra, every musician in that orchestra brings what they bring to the table with their one individual instrument. And we all know, a kettle drum or a clarinet or a guitar or a trumpet, they're all powerful. But when you put those four together, it exponentially goes onto a completely different level, and that's what this is. Carlye is doing a lot on her own, and Austin does a lot on his own. I do a lot on my own, but when we come together, it just goes to a completely different level. So much so that we hope that when you're watching the shows, you have no idea about all that stuff. You're just lost in that world, or somehow connecting with that character, realizing that, wow, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that feels like that. That's our job. That's what makes it special for us, in my opinion at least.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Something like that seems also really interesting because once presented to like an audience, like if I'm watching that, I'm like, oh, that was such a cool scene. They did such a good job with it. That's exactly how it was supposed to be. Yeah. But to hear the behind the scenes process of like all the things that you had to go through to get there, and it's like, oh, it wasn't, somebody didn't hand you like, please do this. This is exactly what we need. But you guys do it so well that it ends up looking like, oh, of course that's what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
And Euphoria caused a lot of problems.
Euphoria,
I'm a parent, so I've got daughters, and they were all on Euphoria, and I was like, you gotta turn that off.
Well, Euphoria is interesting because Sam loves to play, like, he'll cut a scene 7 different ways, and we'll mix it 7 different ways. Sure. And so when you finally watch it, and you're like, okay, cool, good scene. And you're like, no, there were 6 other iterations of that scene that all played in a different way and had a different emotional story beats. Okay. So it's amazing how many, how much you work in it. As an editor, you're constantly reworking a scene, like you said. You'll cut a scene so many times, and you finally land on it, and people are like, "Oh, cool! You must have done that your first try." Like, no.
I cried myself to sleep that night. Exactly. Jazzy, I want to circle back to you. Diversity in casting has become increasingly important in the entertainment industry. So how did you prioritize diversity and representation in the casting process for the Traitors, and what steps do you take to ensure a diverse range of contestants?
Yeah, I think it's really easy when you're casting something, you cast stuff that you know, right? You want to just put someone that you've maybe seen, like when I say like the hairstylist, your hairstylist that you normally would see on TV. People are a lot more complex than what we see on TV, and we really want to make sure and we take care when we do that. So we are someone that will bring in a very diverse casting team from all different types of backgrounds so we can learn and understand. We also want to make sure that we highlight different disabilities or people from different walks of nature. So what we always do is just make sure that when we're casting something, we're not just sticking with what we know. We want to push outside, we want to push the envelope. Something, for example, when we did The Circle, I know it's not the Traitors, but The Circle, we had our first deaf contestant, and that was something that we were really proud about because this is a very visual show. We have the ability to cast someone like that in that, in that type of show. And that was something that we were really proud of because I know that community wants to see themselves on TV. I want to see myself on TV too. Like in reality TV, a lot of black women are kind of put into this box. And we want to make sure that we can really push the envelope, see people for who they are, explore those stories, and get to enjoy something like, oh wow, like, oh my gosh, I know that's like me on TV, like I can do that. So that's how we cast. You know, it's really easy to just throw someone in a box, but we're not that box. We are moving different types of people. We're a lot more. We're complex. We're interesting, and that's what makes a show great.
I was about to say that's probably why those shows have been so successful.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yeah, because everyone wants to see themselves on TV. And that's something that I pride myself in, especially growing up. I was a big consumer of reality TV. I loved The Real World. I loved Room Raiders, like all of those shows. And then I was like, but I never saw myself, you know, I never saw the girl with the natural hair on TV. So being able to push the envelope and have that, like, that's so exciting, I think, for everyone to be able to watch.
And very important.
And very important.
I love that. Carlye, can you elaborate? I feel like I'm gonna have which hat am I having you put on right now? Let's see. The sourcing of women directors hat.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on the
Copy.
challenges of some of the challenges you faced finding women directors for action and horror shorts, and what steps can the industry take to address this issue of underrepresentation in the genre?
Yes. Okay,
Everyone
so-
take out your pen and paper and take notes on this, please.
I'll start this with, so where this question is coming from is that I co-founded a company called Not Your Daddy's Films. That's at NYD Films on Instagram. But it is a social impact organization that supports and trains women and non-binary filmmakers. And we have panels, we have podcasts, we have a short film screening that we do every other month in LA, and all different types of things, mentorship programs, etc. So with our short film series, we're only a year and a half old, so we've been having to, we get submissions, but we also really need to source, and especially because we're not an official film festival and don't plan to be, we are allowed to source, and we want to make sure that there is all types of representation. But we had a short film screening night that was meant to be all action short films, and then we also did a horror night, and the way that it was so difficult to find shorts that are genre and directed by women or non-binary directors was out of this world. I mean, like, the outreach that we had to do was crazy, and we were like, why is this so hard? And people would be like, oh, a woman directing action, like, that's so niche. And I was like,
What?
That's insane.
I was like, this is a problem. This
Not
is
niche.
This is literally niche. Multiple people said that.
Wow.
And yeah, and so we were like, okay, now it is our personal mission to pump more women and non-binary filmmakers into genre, because the need or the want is there. You know, there's so many of us that love it. It's just that we haven't been exposed to how to do it. And particularly with genre, it's expensive. It's expensive to train, like to know how to direct and have, you know, all of the VFX stuff. It's just like the training simply is not there. So a big part of what we do is we kind of are just trying to gather these people that are interested in it and figure out, like, how are we gonna move this needle at all? And it has to start with that beginning training. Like, I love genre. Okay, I think I could direct it, but how? So we have taken that and sort of run with it, and what's been really cool is as our company has snowballed really fast, it's just exposing all of these incredible creatives across the board that not only want to help, but are like willing to start at the very beginning and be like, okay, yeah, I can do it, let's figure it out together. And we talk about it as we figure it out. So I think a way that the industry can help is, I mean, grants. There are programs, but everything is so small still, and grants are are few and far between, that I think if we could have just more opportunity and more money pumped into that, that would be so helpful. And just taking chances, you know. It's such a male-dominated industry or pocket right now that we just have to give more women and non-binary creators chances. And that means taking women under your wing, shadowing, just helping each other. And so I do think, programs, training programs, and money is the biggest way that we can really help.
If you, or maybe you know somebody that is a female director or aspiring female director of any genre, talk to this lovely person afterwards, or follow their social media, please.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap this panel up on an inspiring note. I'd love to ask everybody on the panel here what advice you would give to aspiring filmmakers or industry professionals looking to enter the world of film and media production. Does anybody want to start one? Because I feel like that was I made it sound nice again, but that was a heavy question, considering a room of sponge-minded people.
I do have a short answer to that one. You'll get a lot of advice on that question, but my one bullet point I have for that is pick a hero and follow them. Something, I want to be like that. You see a Carlye, wow, I want to be like that. Then follow that particular filmmaker, use it as a pattern. I often ask folks, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, who are your heroes? If you want to play basketball, you don't have a basketball player on your wall. You want to play guitar, but you don't have a guitarist on your wall. I don't believe that you really want it. So that's my piece of advice for that. Pick a hero and follow him.
Love it.
I love it. I'll go next.
Yeah, please.
Your next step is the best step that you could ever take. A lot of people don't take chances. They're afraid to do it. But unless you take that chance, you take that step, you have no idea where you're going to go next.
I got goosebumps, legitimately. Wow, I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to follow that one up.
Sorry.
No pressure.
I just want to say, follow your dreams. For myself, I'm going to date myself here. When I was 15, went to see the original Star Wars when it first came out. When that spaceship flew over my head and I felt the vibration
It was
of
over.
everything. That was it. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want to work for George Lucas. And I later worked at Industrial Light and Magic for 19 years. So I got to work on the special editions and some of the Star Wars movies. So for me, as a kid, growing up in the Ozarks, Springfield, Missouri, of all places, middle of, I don't want to say nowhere, but people actually made fun of me when I said that's what I wanted to do. And, the thing is, you don't listen to them. Don't listen to those voices. Listen to the voice in your head. Be true to yourself.
Sure, yeah, I'll go. A lot of great answers. I would say, with regard to composing, I would say, I try and remind myself of this all the time, is try and be as specific as you can with your choices. Think about things that only you can do. And that comes around with experimentation a lot of the time. And especially in this age of AI, where a lot of us just don't know how this is all going to shake out, and just sort of concern of like, whoa, what's my job situation going to be like in 10 years? Or I think it's very easy to sort of worry yourself down a rabbit hole, but think of things that only you can come up with, because you'll be able to hang your hat on those, and who knows? Because AI is going to follow that choice eventually. Yeah. We're the original creators. So, but again, just try and be as I don't want to say you can't set out to be original. That's very hard to do, but that comes through just experimentation and finding things that are specific to you.
Great advice.
I was just going to say, be nice, be friendly.
Please be nice.
Be someone that's going to
Yes.
be easy to work with. You heard the word collaboration a lot today, and people want to collaborate with people that are friendly, they can be friends with, that are easy to work with, because you're going to see the same people on your way up as you do on your way down.
Whoa.
So.
Whoa.
That's real.
Hard to agree. Really real. Whoa. Do you want to add anything?
I would love to. I would say get obsessed, and I think everybody in this room probably understands that. Like, figure out what you love and become the expert. And don't be afraid to try. Starting is the hardest part, and if you have your vision and you lock into your vision, if it seems scary, like, you can figure it out. You can ask, you can read, you can watch. There's so many resources available, and so much is just talking about it, talking to people about it, and you can figure it out.
Such good advice, you guys. Round of applause for advice, please. You guys, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you to our panelists, Austin, Carlye, Charles, Jazzy, Marshall, and Philip for being here with you to discuss their creative work. Also, thank you to Impact 24 PR and WonderCon for putting this panel together. And for all of you guys for joining us.